Wheel of Genre, the show for readers who heard the Stooges saying, "I want to be your dog," and took it a little too literally. Each week we spin the wheel and land on a different genre, idea, or author, and right now we are reading The Complete John Silence Stories by Algernon Blackwood, including this one, The Camp of the Dog. I'm Zach, and this week I am really interested in how this story has nice little layers. You know, it's mythic, it's folklore, and yet it's a little bit psychological. It's fun.
Like an onion. I'm Bob. I'm interested in the Stooges reference. I was thinking of Sunset Roller Coaster the whole time, but Stooges is good. I'm really interested in, like you said, there is legend, there is myth, but the idea of a supernatural creature being real because of thoughts and it taking someone's like deep inner issues to come out, but then it also takes others' perceptions of those things to be seen. Otherwise, the two ideas don't meet and nothing really happens.
Well, before we really launch into this, this story got me thinking about like recurring settings in Algernon Blackwood. We've read a few Blackwood at this moment, and I think that what I'm noticing is the man loves camping. And as I was reading this, it got me thinking that like this could be the same setting as The Willows. So The Willows was published in 1907, and this is 1908. So just a year before. And he seems to be reusing this same kind of middle of nowhere wilderness landscape setting. But I did a little research, and he seems to be doing this pretty often. He wrote a story called A Haunted Island in 1899. So, 8 years before. But then the very next year he does The Wendigo, which is also set in a very similar type of landscape. So I don't know. I guess I'm saying that it tickles me when I see these kind of like repeat obsessions of an author, and it makes me wonder, where does it come from? What is going on in his life where he feels this kind of like emotional, a psychic attachment to where this is the landscape where his creativity plays out.
I think when we did The Willows, we found out how cool Algernon Blackwood was and how like much better his life is than our lives. He was doing mountain biking, he was doing kayaking, he was just everywhere all the time, camping all the time. So all of these islands are different. Like the one for The Willows is in the Danube. This is in Sweden. It's in, where is it? The Stockholm archipelago, where there are The archipelago. There are 24,000 islands there. Sorry. So the archipelago. So they
Archipelago.
It's the archipelago. He does lots and lots of camping, and I think he finds it very inspiring. So it's not just a repeat obsession of I'm going back to that same island. I think he would go deliberately. Well, I don't know this, but I'm guessing he would go deliberately to have these experiences, and then he would try and communicate these experiences into his stories. But I also have a note that just says clearly a camper, because he just describes like setting up your tent, the landscape of this island in the most beautiful ways possible. That's the best part of the story, is just hearing Algernon Blackwood talk about like gathering firewood, setting up a tent, and just admiring the trees, the ocean. It's great.
And how everyone takes on like different roles while they're camping. I thought that was so perceptive of how like we become different people. Yeah, clearly a camper. And I'm also noticing that like this story is good because of all of those things you just described, the way that he reflects his experience camping in the story. And yet the previous story we talked about, that was good because of the way he was describing nature. And like the common theme that I'm noticing is that it's not the horror or supernatural aspects that make these stories really shine. It's the kind of like sublime element of nature that comes through, the reverence of the natural world,
The reverence of the natural world. And what you said earlier was very interesting about people becoming themselves, or people becoming something different when they're out camping. And I think that is the main thing that Algernon Blackwood wants to explore here. He says it's kind of a weird bunch that goes. It's a husband and wife, and the man is a he used to be a priest, and then he was like, oh, this is not really what I want to do. So now he's like a grammar school teacher, but only part-time. So he'll take people out camping. And so it's him, his wife, his daughter, one of his students, and then our narrator who's just along for the ride. But it seems that his student, who has been this really mousy, kind of studious, always studying, always kind of frail and weak character, he becomes the ultimate camper. His daughter becomes the ultimate camper. And that is the story of our romance here. But I was so interested in this idea of awakening something in a person. We've seen that in many of the Blackwood stories. You have old memories that possess you. You have past lives that come and possess you. And here, when they go to the island, when they go camping, again, the objective and the subjective meet, and it causes a psychic transformation.
The psychic transformation is right. And they have this great quote where they talk about how the place is utterly unsoftened by human influences, by any humanizing associations of history, good or bad. This landscape has never awakened into life. It's still dreaming in its primitive sleep. And the man says, in time? You mean a man living here might become brutal? The passions would run wild, selfishness becomes supreme, the instincts coarsen and turn savage, probably. So yeah, there is this element of like, this model, I guess I should say, of a kind of cross-pollination between humanity and like the stuff of nature itself. And like, if you go to a place where people have been living with a long time, in some way or sense, nature has been made more human. And yet if you go somewhere where there's no human and never has been human, then the human there becomes more nature.
Yeah, you're right. You are changing, and I think there's this great quote where he says, but the first sweeping change that the primitive life brings about is that the artificial portions of the characters shed themselves one after another like dead skins. So this is this natural thing. We've all been camping. We know there's certain things that cannot be afforded to you anymore. You don't have running water often. You just have to kind of deal with it, and you have to adjust, and maybe you become, one with nature more. But this is where we get supernatural too, because these people are seeing a wolf. They are hearing a wolf. They call it a dog for a long time, and eventually they decide, oh, it's a wild wolf that's just really hungry, running around on this island. But what they find is that this wolf is kind of not normal, that when they look during the day, they can't find it anywhere. Where has it gone? There is evidence of prints. There's evidence of the tent being torn. There is evidence of like scratches on people because of this dog. But this is one of my stupid notes, Zach, that I don't think makes any sense, but I was thinking about this. When these characters are looking at the wolf, they finally see it, but they know at the same time it's not really a wolf. It's still Peter Sangre, that boy who's the Canadian scholar. He's the young scholar who's learning under Reverend Maloney, who is the other main character, or the father in the story. It's him, and they see both at the same time. And I was thinking about purple. Did you know purple doesn't exist? Have you heard about this? Yeah, apparently purple does not exist. So apparently, according to Science News Direct, when we see something purple, we're seeing two wavelengths. It says, if long wavelength cones are excited, the color should be red or near to red. But if short wavelength cones are excited, the color should be near to blue. But then it says that the colors are on opposite ends of the spectrum, so it doesn't make sense for them to really even be related. But somehow our brain bends that spectrum and like kind of cuts the whole thing out. It's almost like that paper trick of saying, okay, you're in a new dimension because you can bend the paper and it touches the other underside of the paper. It does that with red and blue, and it bends that whole spectrum, that straight line, into a circle. And then our brain tells us purple. But it feels like this conception of the werewolf, which we all know as a mythical creature, you change into a wolf and you are really a physical wolf. Here, Peter Sangre is kind of a human, kind of a wolf at the same time. And it feels like as the characters are looking at him, they're like, okay, I see a wolf, but I also see Peter Sangre's face, but I also see the wolf's face. It's that idea of red and blue kind of overlapping each other. And it makes the werewolf seem a little more possibly real outside of just magic or fantasy. Now it's like, oh, I can experience the werewolf because I know it is something, it's an idea, and then I can experience someone kind of doing werewolfy things, and I can no longer distinguish the two. It's become purple. It's become a werewolf.
I'll be honest, I had no idea where you were going with this purple thing, but you really pulled it together in a beautiful way. I'm all in now. I'm all in.
That's right.
So this is like an interesting idea that Blackwood has, I think, which is like, in some sense, our spiritual selves are in a way not like apparently us, if that makes sense. So like, I guess I'm still kind of working out this idea, but you know, when we think of like the souls of people, you know, let's see, like if I go to heaven and my dog is waiting there for me, it's going to rankle a few feathers, but you know, I expect my dog's soul in heaven to look a lot just like my dog's body here on earth. You know, I'm going to say, Chai dog, I love you. Ah, you chocolate lab, you. But the idea that I think we're getting here is that a person's soul or spirit can actually be reflective of something else within them. It can look different than their body. You can have the body of a human, but the soul of a dog. You know, if you got that dog in you, you're so and what we're seeing here, I guess, is a kind of double exposure where the people around Peter Sangre are able to witness that double exposure happening of the soul overlaid on the body. I guess I'm still trying to work through exactly what image Blackwood is giving us here, but it's a very interesting one.
It is an interesting one. And then it comes up. So as you experience it, as you see it, it is a double exposure. You know, as they're looking at it, he's like, I see it, but it also seems like it's not real. But there are other kind of weird supernatural rules to how it works, because when Dr. John Silence comes on the scene, and everything changes, of course, the whole atmosphere changes whenever he comes to a place, but they say that there's a double. So as Sangre is running around, the two almost seem separated. And now to get to spoilers, you know, there's this whole romance between Sangre and Maloney's daughter, and it's very nice, actually. It's very cute. They finally get together. It's all turns out okay. But one of the spoilers is Maloney, the father, shoots him in the head. Like he's trying to shoot the dog, and he keeps saying, we're going to go on a hunt. We got to kill this dog. We got to kill this dog. As John Silence keeps saying, do not do this. Do not bring a gun into the fray. We're just going to figure things out peaceably. He shoots him. And later we see that Sangre is going to, even though the double was shot and Sangre was not really shot, Sangre will have a scar forever until he dies across his face.
Which is extremely hard, by the way. I mean, a scar across your face until you die, and then it goes away. Wow, cool.
Pretty cool looking. And they call this thing an astral body. So it's like it's being astrally projected. It's almost like a Patronus kind of, now that I think about it. Yeah. But if it gets hurt, it scars your body in a way, but it doesn't kill you. And so John Silence describes it. He says, this double, or this fluidic body of a man, has the power under certain conditions of projecting itself and becoming visible to others. So it's that double running around. But then he says certain training can accomplish this. So you can develop this doubling of yourself, but it seems to just be happening to Sangre without his will. And it's running around uncontrolled.
Right. And I like that idea of being able to develop it yourself. It reminds me of, you know, other kinds of like occult practices, like out of body experiences or astral projection, things like that. And it's kind of like a knowing nod to them without this necessarily being in like an OBE story or an astral projection story. It's a knowing nod to the kind of writers who've come before who have covered this topic.
Zach, I want to look again, because we've been trying to figure out exactly what John Silence is or who he is. Sometimes he's mysterious. In some certain stories, we learn a lot about him. In others, we just get more mystery. But here, it seems like he's almost a force of nature, because there's been so much about this island is uncontrolled. There are all of these natural forces in the island. But then, as soon as he sets foot on the island, it says this. It says, everything changed from the moment John Silence set foot on that island. It was like the effect produced by calling in some big doctor, some great arbiter of life and death for consultation. The sense of gravity increased 100-fold. Even inanimate objects took upon themselves a subtle alteration. So it feels like when he shows up, the rules change, or the whole environment changes so much that there is like a layer of new psychic rules that now there's all these complaints about Dr. John Silence about how he's very inaccurate, and it's like it's all made up or whatever. The psychic detective stuff is all bullocks, but I think it's very interesting how these people are completely perplexed. All of these terrible things are happening to them. And then suddenly when John Silence enters, there's like a field of being able to participate as a human. You're no longer lost. You can participate fully, and he can teach you how to do it.
Yeah. He's like the compass of the group, the moral and spiritual compass of the group, that who are lost in the wilderness, both metaphorically and in a sense literally, I think. He arrives and points away. And it's not the first time for one of them. This does star Mr. Hubbard as the person talking, by the way, who we've previously seen as the star or as the
Nemesis of Fire.
Yeah, Nemesis of Fire. I guess you wouldn't really call him the star of Nemesis of Fire. You would just say the narrator of the Nemesis of Fire.
The Watson. Yeah, narrator.
Yeah. Well, so the Watson thing is interesting because we've talked about this again and again, because the most common reference point for who John Silence is Sherlock Holmes. And I maintain to this day that is inaccurate. And I think that what you said about the way in which he spiritually affects those around him highlights how he is almost nothing like Sherlock Holmes. I don't think Sherlock Holmes provides a moral framework. I don't think Sherlock Holmes provides protection, either in a physical sense or a spiritual sense. John Silence seems to be someone who makes the world safe for those around him simply by the force of him being good, of him being a protector against these things which cannot be seen or understood in a materialistic sense. And I just don't get that with Holmes,
Zach, I'm going to blue and red you here. I agree and disagree with you. I think he's based on Holmes. There are so many things that Holmes does that Silence does too. And while there is not so much of an emphasis on Watson saying the lightness or how much confidence he inspires in people, Watson clearly is inspired by Holmes and loves everything that he does. And I feel like that is one of the reasons we really like Sherlock Holmes. Some of the stories are a little bit boring. I mean, some of them are great. Some of them are a little bit boring. But we love Sherlock Holmes so much because he makes you as a reader feel safe. And he is, of course, bringing people to justice. He can outsmart anyone. He outsmarts even the police, Lestrade. He outsmarts anybody. But he is a force of goodness that cannot be stopped, I feel like. And I feel like that is kind of similar to what John Silence does as well.
Well, I think that when you say that Sherlock can't be stopped, I think that what you're describing is his dog-like nature. And it's unfortunate that I'm making this argument on a story literally titled The Camp of the Dog. But Sherlock's houndedness, the way that, when he's a bloodhound, he smells the blood and he goes after it. And that's a doggedness that I think is being a force for the good, but it is not the same thing. I don't get the sense that, I think that last episode we talked about how John Silence seems to be more and more explicitly tied to Jesus Christ. And I think that like Christ, the miracle worker, is really fundamentally the model that we're working off of here.
That's fair. I guess he's very explicitly, like, there are so many symbols of Christ tied to John Silence. But still, I think Sherlock Holmes, in inspiring the good, I think he inspires the good in people, in the reader. And what I mean is he gives you the sense that there is a good. He's in kind of a world where bad things cannot be stopped. The police cannot figure anything out. But he has this idea of being the first consulting detective, putting all of his skills together to produce the idea that there is goodness. But yes, he does feel like a different figure. You know, the cocaine addiction, as you.
Oh man, just imagine John Silence on cocaine. We'd have a real devil on our hands. Well, we got one more John Silence story, and I am wondering if my insistence on who he is going to be challenged by it at all. If this next story, which was written later than all of the rest, might show us a different side of Silence. I'll talk to you later, Bob.
The sound of a different side of silence. Talk to you later, Zach.
This is the sound of John Silence.